and it's on veteran community. So be on the lookout to register for this invite. Furthermore, we're going to have Mr. Sánchez present for about 50 minutes, and the last 10 minutes, it'll be for questions and answers. We do have our chat narrator, Simon Atua, a professor that's going to be tracking the chats, and she'll be jotting down questions to ask Mr. Sánchez towards the end. Before we get started, we're going to have our director of FPU, Dr. Clark, start with an opening prayer.
All right, thank you. I'm going to be actually saying a prayer that was made by Pope Francis this last week during National Migration Week. And so if we can all just listen to this, that would be great. Lord, make us bearers of hope, so that where there is darkness, your light may shine. And where there is discouragement, confidence in the future may be reborn. Lord, make us instruments of your justice, so that where there is exclusion, fraternity may flourish, and where there is greed, a spirit of sharing may grow. Lord, make us builders of your kingdom, together with migrants and refugees, and with all who dwell on the peripheries. Lord, let us learn how beautiful it is to live together as brothers and sisters. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Clark. Okay, and we'll next introduce Mr. Oscar Sánchez from the Mexican Consulate Protección de Servicios. Myself, as a practitioner for many years, I utilized the Mexican Consulate to help me find families in other countries, and also provide services to immigrants here in the local areas. So Mr. Oscar Sánchez holds a bachelor's degree in international relations from the National Autonomous Universidad of Mexico, UNAM, and completed a course on diplomatic studies at the Matias Foreign Services since 2017. He previously served as the Secretary of Foreign Relationships in Mexico City, where he was the Director Deputy of Central Europe. In his current position, he's a supervisor of the Consulate of Protección here in the Central Valley. And we're all foremost, we are thank you for having you here today. And the floor is yours, Mr. Sánchez. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Edgar Manriquez, and all the authorities at Fresno Pacific University. I am so excited to be here, and I am so excited to address this audience in particular, because I think it is a great opportunity for us to network and then continue the work that it's going on in the Central Valley with Mexican immigrants. I'm so happy to have the floor to share the work that we do here at the Protection and Legal Affairs Department, because I think this might shine a light of the overall problems that our immigrants, not only Mexicans, are facing here in the Central Valley of California. And that obviously is involving a number of authorities and other actors, such as social workers in the Central Valley. So I think this is of the utmost interest for you. And I hope this brings more questions and solves another set of questions that you may already have. And we'll start from there. My intention here is to provide an overview of what we do, how we do it, and the number of things that we might be seeing on a daily basis. And based on that, I want to raise your curiosity for what we do, and maybe we can have a positive exchange of ideas after I finish my presentation. So with no more further ado, I will start the presentation. Can you guys see it?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. First of all, I would like to start with our global presence. We are a representation, a diplomatic representation of the Mexican government here in the Central Valley of California. We're based in Fresno, but we are part, of course, of a larger effort to expand the presence of Mexico overseas. So we have right now 147 representations worldwide. 80 of them are embassies, 67 of them are consulate. Here's the interesting part. Of those 67 consulates, 50 are in the United States, just in the United States. And that, of course, makes this the largest network in the world. We are the country with the most consulates in another country in the world. And that has led us to, being highly specialized in providing consular services, and also being in the lead of the development of a consular relation with another country. Of those 50 consulates that cover the entirety of the United States, 10 are in California. And you can see the list: Calexico, Fresno, Los Angeles, Oxnard, Sacramento, San Bernardino, San Diego, San Francisco, San Jose, y Santa Ana. So with these 10 consulates, we managed to cover the entirety of the state of California, which is a large amount of population, close to 40 million. And we have a lot of Mexican population here. I want to provide a little more data for contextualizing the work that we do at the consulates. We have right now around 33.7 million Mexican nationals living in the US. This could be Mexican immigrants or first generation that holds dual citizenship, but in the total number is around 33.7 million Mexicans, and we are, by law, we have the mandate to protect them. So can you imagine this is a task, this is a huge task for us. But what does this mean for us, for the practice of consular protection of Mexico in the United States? Basically, this is obviously an acknowledgement, a response of the high concentration of Mexican immigrants in North America, particularly in the United States. This has, of course, led us to a high degree of specialization in the United States. It could be on a federal level or on a state level, but we have presence in the entirety of the territory of the United States, and we operate in every state and in a federal level, of course. And as you can imagine, with this huge mission of taking care of 33.7 million Mexicans, we, of course, have conveyed the highest priority within our foreign policy to the subject of consular protection and consular services in general. I'm gonna go on a more particular level now. This is the mission of the Consulate of Mexico in Fresno. Of those 33.7 million Mexicans, I think we cover up to 1.5 million Mexicans in the Central Valley of California. But this is only based on the numbers of the 2010 census. We are still yet to process the numbers of the number is higher because there was this campaign to enhance the we're still working on that, but we believe that at least is 1.5 million Mexicans that we serve in the Central Valley of California. This is 8 counties. There's the map. Basically, it's from Mariposa and Merced to Kern until the other side of the mountains to the Inyo County. And the mission of the consulate, just as for every other consulate of Mexico in the United States, is to cover 3 main areas. First of all, the one that you perhaps know the most, the documentation department, which is to provide a number of documents to Mexican people living here in the United States. The most famous are, and you may be familiar with, the passport and the Mexican ID, the matricula. So that's what we provide on a daily basis to more than 1,500 people a week. So it's a huge task for us. And I think that's our most visible service that we provide, but it's not the only one. We believe that the consular mission has 3 legs. One leg, and one important leg, of course, is the documentation department, but we have 2 others. The second one is community outreach and empowerment programs. Basically, we go out to the community, we spread the word about our services, about the protection that we can provide, about many information that is relevant on a daily basis. And we provide a number of programs on education, health, and financial education for people living already in the United States. And this is with the only intention to empower them, to provide more tools for them to develop. And I think it's a very noble mission, the community outreach and empowerment programs at the consulate. And the third one, of course, is the Protection and Legal Affairs Department, which is the department under my charge. And that's what I'm going to explain to you more thoroughly. More contextualizing for you, I think it's the characteristics of the people living here in the United States coming from Mexico, because this obviously has an impact of the quality of life that they might have, the number of opportunities they might encounter, and the number of problems that will arise. So this is, of course, a basic characterization. I'm not saying that this is all of our people here, but this is the people that we see at the Protection and Legal Affairs Department, because there's a difference. Of course, we have entrepreneurs, we have people with second generations already, we have people that has been here for over a century, but the people that we take is that I'm going to explain. Mostly low-income families dealing with really tough lives, and of course facing poverty. And I'm not saying this in a blunt way or, you know, as an overgeneralization, but I think that a number of issues can be explained through the idea of the poverty as a whole. What are the consequences of poverty in terms of education, in terms of access to justice, in terms of you know, the knowledge of the law, the prevention side of the law as well. And I think that poverty is a state that prevents our people to be familiar with all of those things that I just mentioned. So bear in mind that this is maybe the origin of the problems, but I'm not saying it's the only one. Of course, we have a large population coming from indigenous communities who don't necessarily speak Spanish, let alone English. We call them original languages, of course, because it has its own value, and there's a reason for them to speak only that language. But that can come as a barrier for them to communicate and for us to provide a service. So we have to bear that in mind. Of course, this is not a majority either, but the number is high enough to count this as a challenge, and you will see it. And I believe that our fellow social workers that are seeing this presentation right now are already aware of the number of people speaking indigenous languages from Mexico and the number of challenges that this might pose. Third one is, of course, that our community is not fully aware of their rights. They might even be afraid to approach the authorities to report a crime. And I would say this with a lot of confidence. This is, or this must be one of our top problems, to take the cases and to look for justice for our people. We cannot think of access to justice if we are not willing to go to the proper authority. And if we have that barrier, then we have a lot more work to do than just taking care of the people's problems. So we have to build trust, we have to find the proper authority, we have to take the person there, and it is important, and it's an important barrier, and I think that you will see it someday. Of course, there is the fear of deportation that is always present, and it has to do with that the number of Mexicans here, a certain amount is from undocumented origins. So of course, they rather not to go to any authority than be exposed. And Also, bear in mind that the undocumented population, it's also not the majority of Mexicans here in the Central Valley, but this condition makes them vulnerable enough and prone to request assistance or consular protection. Also, our people might be super unfamiliar with community resources available to solve their problems. So I'm going to provide for you that might not be familiar with this whole thing of the consular world with a definition of what it is consular protection. And it is basically the set of actions carried out by the Mexican government through consular and diplomatic representations abroad to safeguard the rights and legitimate interests of Mexican population abroad. So this is a really this is a really big definition, but I think that the intent is to be comprehensive about the amount of things that we might see and the things that we might do for our people living abroad. But I want to stress the difference with other actions, because there's one thing that is consular protection is it requires our intervention. This means that if the people is feeling or is, proving that there's a right being violated, or there is a legitimate interest that is overpassed by any authority or any other person in the United States, it requires our intervention. Our intervention can be done in many ways, but mostly implies that, for example, me can speak on behalf of a person, but carrying out my investment as a representative of the Mexican government in the United States. So you can understand that not every action that we do has that power behind. Of course, there's a limited number, but we do that, and we have all the provisions in the Vienna Convention on Consular Affairs give us that prerogative. So there's a difference with other actions, such as mere assistance and diplomatic protection, which goes on a higher and a lower level. Basically, assistance is every action that we do to facilitate information or any other thing to our citizens. This could be even the assistance that we provide directly to the people in terms of money, in terms of resources, in terms of legal assistance. We are here to build a bridge between that thing that is preventing this person to develop and the access to it. And of course, the diplomatic protection is a higher level of consular protection because this is taken to a political level, and we rarely do that. So I'm gonna move ahead. We have certain principles to provide consular protection. So this is also for you to keep in mind because there are a lot of subnational actors operating in the United States. They have the validation for it, but in terms of consular protection, we are the only ones, the representatives of the federal government. It is basically Mexico's foreign service through its embassies or consulates. The second thing that I want you to keep in mind is that in order for people to receive consular protection, they have to request it or they have to accept it. We don't operate just because. And if the person refuses to receive consular protection, there's nothing we can do for them. Also, if they don't want to accept the protection that we might be offering. And this is important because not every case that we have here at the consulate is because people are coming. Sometimes we receive a lot of referrals from organizations, from state and federal and local agencies, and even from community leaders. But that doesn't mean that the person on point is actually requesting or willing to accept the consular protection. So we have no problem to provide consular protection or assistance as long as this person is willing to accept it. And of course, The consular protection is granted regardless of any specific conditions other than nationality. First and foremost, the person has to be Mexican, and it has to be Mexican legally, which means it has to have a proof of nationality, otherwise we cannot operate on their behalf, with certain exceptions that I might explain later. But other than that, we are not seeing if this person is of a certain race, gender, age, religious belief, or of course, even what side of the law they are in, if they are the victims or they are the person perpetrating a crime. We just provide consular protection based on the idea that we have to protect rights, due process, and well, the only thing that we take into consideration is nationality. And of course, this is very important to keep this in mind. The consulate must act always in accordance with international law and local legislation. The international law is basically the framework that allows us to operate here in the United States. And of course, it states that if we have presence in the United States, we have to always be in compliance with local legislation. So there's nothing that we can do here at the consulate that overpasses local legislation. And this is a principle that we always explain our citizens, our partners, because there's as much as we can do within the legal framework of the United States. So among the work that we do at Consular Protection and Legal Affairs Department, we have three priorities. The first one is provide comprehensive care, which means not only take care of the problem that this person might be bringing to the table today, but trying to see the bigger picture and what is in the bigger picture and what can I do to assist this person to overcome their own hardships. Because sometimes they come here with the immediate problem, but that doesn't mean that they don't have 2 or 3 other problems that are also having an effect in their current condition. So we have always the obligation to try to see through the problem and to the bigger picture, to provide comprehensive care. And this always provides us the opportunity to refer and to interact with other parts of the consulate. If this person has a problem and needs documentation, we can see the best way for them to get the documents or to have access to the empowerment programs. The second priority is to always bear in mind that we are dealing with a diverse population, but with specific needs. Case in point is what I mentioned already about people facing poverty, people from indigenous communities, but also we have specific problems that arises. And by now that we have more than 90 years operating here in the Central Valley, we have foreseen already the number of problems that we're facing. So we have to keep that in mind every time. For example, domestic violence. For example, human trafficking. So we have to keep in mind what are the specific problems that our population are facing and act in consequence. So we have developed recently some protocols for action, and this has been in partnership with UNICEF, with UN Women, with the Immigration or International Immigration Organization, for people dealing with gender-biased violence, mostly domestic violence, but it could also be sexual violence, human trafficking, labor exploitation, and kids, children, unaccompanied minors. And the third priority here is always try to see the person that we're taking care of as a subject of development. We're not seeing this person as an unfavored one, a poor person. We're always trying to see the immigrant as a subject of development. They're here looking to better their lives. They're here working. They're here trying to get better. So we have to act in consequence. Basically, we have two lanes where we operate. The the first and foremost is preventive action, because we're trying to avoid all these problems to happen. So we're always, bringing information campaigns, participating in resource fairs, organizing workshop, virtual seminars, just like this one, worksite visitation, to talk in person with the farm workers, and a lot of posts on social media with information of interest, appearances in TV and radio, spreading the word all the time about people's right.
Please bear with us, Mr. Sanchez, you're frozen.
Information about programs, information is in order to get to the problems. Keep in mind that for 1.5 million Mexicans, there's only 6 of us at the protection department. So we have to balance our activities and how we can put out to the world the preventive information, and also at the same time take care of the cases that are already arising. Here's an overview of the cases that we have had per year since 2016. It's the last 5 years, and the basic aspects that we see. I don't know, the categories in which we classify these cases, which are administrative issues, civil issues, human rights, which in English is more close to the idea of civil rights movement, civil rights such as non-discrimination and human rights in general. Labor, of course, and it's super important here at the Central Valley with the agricultural labor, immigration, and criminal issues. So you can see that we are in the thousands realm of cases. We are not only taking just a few of them or just a couple hundred. We're in the thousands range. And this is the number of new cases per year. That doesn't mean that we haven't finished the cases opened in the years prior. It's just an accumulation. So it's just a matter of balance. It's a matter of taking action fast, taking action that is, good enough to solve the problem, so we don't have the accumulation of cases. But of course, we follow through all of them. So you're just seeing the numbers of new cases per year. What are the tools that we have to tackle these problems? Basically, there are 3 programs. As in the public administration world, we design programs to direct resources and to provide specific missions that we want to solve. And of course, this brings back the accountability for us to report to our government. What are we doing? What are the problems we're facing? And how are we solving them? So we have one general program, which is the Program for Protection of Mexicans Abroad, which is subdivided in 7 other sub-programs. Basically, there is one for economic hardship, and there's a number of difficulties that this might entail. There's repatriation of vulnerable people in certain conditions trying to get back to Mexico. The shipping of human remains. There's a lot of people dying here in the United States, and for a different number of conditions, the loved ones, the families want to bring the remains back to Mexico. We do a lot of visitation, and inmate visitation, patient visitation, detainees visitation. We do a lot of information campaigns that you might be familiar with if you follow us on social media. We have a specific program for gender equality, and this is in response to gender-biased violence, and a specific program for victims of human trafficking. We also have a legal program that allows us to have specialists of every aspect of the U.S. law and involve them with our mission to to bridge, you know, this gap between people needing legal assistance and the problem itself. So sometimes a lot of people don't start solving their problems because they're not having access to any legal counsel. So that's what we are trying to provide through the PALE program. It's mostly for consultations, but in certain cases that require more deep action from our end, we provide legal representation to these individuals. And we have the MCLAP, which is a program for Mexican citizens in capital cases in the criminal system. This is a very specific one. It's very sophisticated, and it's, of course, to follow through with the processes that they might be facing, not only in the pre-sentencing part of the process, but also even the appellate part of it. Here are a few examples that I would like to post, because I think, I don't know how we're doing in time, but I would like to get to the Q&A part of this. But this is for you to see that if we have 6 basic categories of cases in the realm of the thousands, and we have 3 main programs to tackle all of them, this is just an overview of the type of cases that we are seeing every day at the consulate. For example, people needing financial assistance, it's because they're facing economic hardship. Sometimes it's homelessness, sometimes it's just a matter of they being behind with the payments, sometimes it's unemployment, but there's a number of social issues behind economic hardship. We have the shipping of human remains, which could be just a person passing and their loved ones trying to get the body to Mexico, but sometimes it's people dying in disastrous or terrible circumstances with no family, with no one taking care of the remains here. And we do all the work of locating families, of gathering the documents, of hiring a funeral home, and get all the documentation done in order to send the human remains to Mexico. We have the programs for victims of domestic violence and human trafficking, and we assist them with a number of situations. It could be the documents that they might have to purchase here at the consulate, if they have any needs for food, for dress, for communication, for medicines. We examine every situation and we decide what is the best assistance that we can provide to this person. Of course, there's the legal assistance. There's the basic aspects of law that I was telling you about. Of course, we see immigration, we see civil and family law, labor law, human rights. Of course, we do a lot of intervention in cases involving Mexican minors, and I believe that this is one of the biggest areas in which we have ever interacted with social workers in the past. It's basically minors in the dependency program, in the dependency process in California, either if they're in custody or guardianship of the state or a third person. We see cases of child abduction, we see cases of general child welfare services, and we also provide a bridge for social workers here in the United States with the dependency authorities in Mexico. Perhaps we're trying to relocate a minor, maybe with a parent in Mexico, or if they have, you know, home visitation, school parenting school, I mean, a number of situations that might complement the work that you do here in the United States. We might provide a bridge to have a continuation of that in Mexico. We do a lot of inmate visitation. We actually go to prisons and we provide assistance to prisoners and detainees. And this could be at the county, state, and federal levels. The idea here is to when it's necessary, and this is most, sometimes they are really disadvantaged just because of the fact that they don't speak any English, that they don't know the US law, and they don't have the resources to get proper representation. So we have this opportunity with people that is just detained and facing a criminal proceeding. But also we see a lot of people that has been wrongfully convicted. Unfortunately, we don't have a specific program for that, but we can provide the assistance of, providing numbers of specialized buffets or legal firms that take care of those cases. So they can write to them and maybe explore a way to appellate their sentence. And of course, this is just shining a light of the enormous tasks that there is right now on criminal justice for immigrants, because sometimes there are, victims of the system taking just forever to take their case or to hear their case in court. Or to the other side, to be a victim of a fast track and go to a jury trial without any preparation and being victim of certain biases, for race, for immigration status, for a number of issues that this person might not be able to go against. And in these cases, of course, we're trying to get those cases before they're happening. So this is a really tricky path to follow through. But also within the prisons, we take care of them, getting access to medical services, being properly placed when they have security concerns, or when they are not allowed to communicate with their loved ones. There's a number of difficulties they might face being in prison, and we're trying to, help them get those things better. Of course, we do a lot of victim advocacy. We help people. It could be a victim of a hate crime. It could be a victim of the domestic violence, a victim of sexual abuse, a victim of child abuse. And it doesn't matter what type of victim it is. As long as it is a victim, we're trying to help them report the case, refer them to legal providers, refer them to civil organization that might be able to take care of their basic needs, and of course follow through the recovery process. We oversee a lot of cases with pensions and compensations, cases including the forwarding of the funds to the recipients in Mexico. It could be for child support or workers' compensation. We do, as I was saying before, patient visitation. It could be in hospitals, clinic, recovery facilities, senior care facilities, and that also involves a lot of interaction with social workers. We do the repatriation of vulnerable people, mostly minors, but we also see elders, people with chronic illnesses, or people with mental health issues. We provide general orientation about institutions, services, administrative procedures here in the US, but also in Mexico whenever we can. We request humanitarian waivers to US immigration authorities for them to allow Mexican citizens to cross the border for a few days, temporarily, just for humanitarian or court-related reasons. And I want to finish this presentation because I don't want to take much longer with this idea of, you have this huge task. That's how I see my own work. I have a huge task to complete. And I also have a huge number of allies. How can I make it work? And I think this little graphic exemplifies everything so well, because that's how we're trying to, ingrainate the work that we do. We have our general program and our legal programs. We are, of course, are in constant communication with state and federal agencies. It could be law enforcement or others that provide, the access to justice for these people. And we also try to connect with a large number of pro bono services in case there is something that we are not able to do, we might find someone who can. And it is important for us to have this networking. You know, I'm not a social worker myself. I do a lot of things that might be close to it, and I'm really proud of that because I think it's a really noble profession. But my main job is to be a diplomat. So besides administrating all this department, I have the work of, you know, networking, building trust with authorities, having new ideas coming from another sources other than myself or the consulate or the Mexican government for prevention and for education. And I think that I have learned that here in the Central Valley, working a lot with a number of people that are really committed to their own causes. And I think that's the best advice I can give you. Those 4 things that you see on the screen. If you're willing to go to the professional part of the social work and you're doing this, you have to bear in mind that it is a lot about networking, trust building, prevention, and education. And I'm going to leave you with that. Of course, I want to leave the space. We have 17 minutes, I guess, for the Q&A. But I want to say thank you for this opportunity to share my experience with you. And thank you, Dr. Manriquez and Fresno Pacific for this tremendous opportunity.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for the presentation, Mr. Sanchez. Awesome. All right, we do have a few questions. First most question is the participants are asking if they can receive a copy of your PowerPoint presentation. Will that be available, Mr. Sanchez?
Yes, that'll be available.
Right. And then the next question is the PAL program, is that free to clients?
Which one?
The PALE, the PAL?
PAL program, yes.
It's free to clients?
Yeah, it is free to clients. The intention of the pilot program is to have this number of legal professionals. It could be attorneys, legal firms, or civil organizations, you know, just available all the time to take those cases.
Okay.
I'm not an attorney myself, neither any person in my team, but we can refer to them and we pay for the counsel they get.
And do you have a brochure or a referral service that we could provide to our participants so they can make referrals to your agency?
I don't have one, but all the information is available on our website. There's a specific part that says Protection Department. And also it tells the story about the most notorious things that we do and the numbers of contact.
And we have another question. One of the participants is asking, they have an undocumented minor in high school that wants to work to help the family. Is there a service out there that can be provided for this minor that wants to work to help the family? Is there a service out there?
Well, this is a great example of the reasoning that we have here. This minor just happens to be working. We don't provide any assistance. We're not, we don't provide social assistance. We're not an agency. We don't do social policy. And perhaps that's the part that was missing at the first part of my presentation. The thing with Mexican immigrants here in the United States is that it has evolved. And the program and the intention and the origin of whatever we can do for them has evolved with it, but has limits. Of course, the decision of a person to relocate from one country to another is deeply personal. And we have to be under the legal framework of the country that is receiving these people. So we cannot do social policy here. We cannot tackle those issues. Those are issues from the United States. Of course, we provide the information about the working rights of this minor, because there's the possibility of minors working, but within certain frameworks. But we do not provide like a scholarship or anything. We don't do that.
And that was
we might be able to connect them with someone who can, but it isn't part of our mission to do that.
And versus an adult undocumented college student that or wants to go to college. And is there any grants out there for college tuition for our students that are undocumented?
We have a couple grant cases, but it's just really it's not for putting someone into college. Like the whole idea of putting someone in college here in the United States is just providing an assistance to help them throughout the process. But that is not part of my department. That is for the community outreach program. So.
Okay, thank you. And then the other one on the homeless clients that you serve, is there a specific shelter that they can go to, or do you guys house them, or any kind of financial assistance?
It's a number of issues. Sometimes people in the homelessness situation face a number of other issues. Most of them are addiction. Most of them are mental illness. So it's not just as simple as, how you're homeless, go to that shelter and that's it. So we have to go through their situation, and sometimes it's super hard because we cannot do everything for them. Whenever the case is, allows us, we will do as much as we can. We have helped homeless people, providing them documents and referring them to an agency that can get them close to a social accommodation. I don't know what's the name for it, but these facilities that are for people facing economic hardship, and they need an ID to get that apartment and start paying a super low rent in the meantime while they are recovering for this situation. So sometimes we help them, for example, get the documents, referring them to the proper organization, and then follow through, maybe providing some cash for them to pay the deposit that they will need for food, for clothing, for a certain amount of days. So that's what we do in those cases. For example, it might not be a wholesome aid that we provide, but it's a part of it, and we use our ability of networking to connect them with other services.
And earlier you shared some stats. Thank you very much. Very significant, high numbers. How many clients do you serve in Fresno County itself, just Fresno County?
I don't have a way to say, because the only thing that we take care is that they're Mexicans. I have taken care of Mexicans coming from Portland, coming from Arizona. So I have a way to, register where they're coming from, but not to, process that information and to provide it with a number for per county.
And another question, do your social workers at the consulate, do they refer out to community services specifically?
Come again?
If you're working with the client and you guys can't accommodate those services, does consulate social workers refer to community members?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do that a lot. And actually, I think that is what we do the most on a daily basis.
All right. Any more questions? We still have 10 minutes.
I have a question, and mine's a little, it's a lot, so I won't put it in the chat. Now, Mr. Sanchez, I think you made a really good point, distinguishing the difference between the Consulate of Mexico and what your jurisdiction and what your capacity is versus, what we do as social workers, as professionals here, and what our capacity is, and that there's this gap, right? There's this gap in services or intervention for the community members. And how do we mitigate that? And so I think that's something that we are responsible for as social workers or as professionals in other disciplines, is that not only do we work on a micro level, but we also have a responsibility to advocate for change in policies and laws, et cetera. Having worked at your capacity, what recommendations do you have for future social workers, for professionals currently in the field, in regards to how we can advocate with our local legislators, state, federal, et cetera, in supporting the work that not only your agency does, but more importantly, making sure that we mitigate this gap?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that it's all about networking. And I'm not saying this in a practical way, because you can have a network for specific purposes within your own work. But what I've learned here in the Central Valley, because that doesn't happen like that in Mexico, and I think it's a really valuable information, is that you have to operate through a network for almost everything. The thing with the networking is that that might get you close to the leadership. And if you're close to the leadership, then you might pose the problems that you're seeing on your agency, on your office, or wherever your work is in the Central Valley. So, for example, there are a lot of social workers coming here to the consulate, being called by an organization, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, Centro La Familia. And we've put together a forum to explain them the novelty in immigration. And it's a space where we provide, time to networking, to get to know each other, to get to understand our specific missions, and to navigate through that. I think it's easier to navigate through a network than trying to navigate just with a problem I'm seeing and my willingness to solve it. So if you're networking, I think that is key for everything. And this might entail going the extra mile, not only your work, but also being willing to go to resource fairs, to be present in community events, to volunteer your work for social causes. And this will open your eyes to something that is bigger than the work that you're doing in your agency. And of course, it's an open door for opportunities. I think networking is.
Excellent, thank you, Sánchez. And there's another question. As social workers, we receive referrals, sometimes we follow up, and one of the times is we offer services. What if you have a client in a situation that they refuse your services? Do you guys keep the caseload of the client and follow up at a later time? Or do you guys just close it out and not follow up that refuse services?
I think that depends on the case. I can't say any specific information because it's private information, but I will tell you, for example, once I had a capital case and the guy was refusing our assistance, but it was a capital case. So I could not let that guy go through court alone. So I was going to every court hearing that he had, and we were present at every court hearing that he had during jury trial, just to make sure that everything was being in due process. We might suspend the communication with him. We might not do any direct action with the district attorney or with the defense, but we were there ensuring that it was the process, and we were there making sure that the judge knows that we're there. So that's a perfect example. Sometimes the case demands that we follow through, and sometimes the case just doesn't. Maybe I've had cases, for example, people with a family member going into jail for a domestic case. And I provide the information about the rights, the process, and connect them with legal assistance. And sometimes the attorney says, you don't have a case, or you have this opportunity, or your best option is this. And it's not what people are willing to hear. And they just walk away. After I just bridged that gap between legal access and the people with their problems, my mission is done. So even though I know that that person might go follow through a criminal proceeding, I already did my part. And if they are refusing any further assistance, or if they don't want to assimilate what they just heard, they will have to go on their own. But that's on a case-by-case basis. Of course, there are cases where we have the luxury to loosen up. The minors, for example. We don't ask minors if they want our assistance or not. They're minors. They're responsibility of the state on both sides of the border. So when we have Mexican minors or US minors that are children of Mexican citizens, we follow through the entire case. So it's on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, this will conclude our time. Mr. Oscar Sanchez, thank you very much for taking your time and presenting and representing the Mexican consulate and giving us all that information. Serving 8 counties here, that's a lot. That's a big ground that you guys have to cover. How many social workers do you have in your team?
I don't have any social worker. We are a number of professionals, but it's me plus 5 in my staff.
Wow, you guys are superheroes. You guys need a social work. So thank you very much.
I'm looking forward to talk to Patricia about that.
Okay, well, thank you for serving the most vulnerable population here.